go ahead and give us our intro. Oh my God, you guys, so excited. Here we are, X97, the finale to season one. We are shook mostly because I am like in denial. I cannot believe the season is over. I want more. I want more. Leave them wanting more. So they definitely have done that. It was a great episode. It was such a good episode. Just reflecting on it, so many things happened. It was so good. There were a lot of emotional moments. Some surprises. I feel like some things we saw coming because they've been building up to it. But overall, I felt like it was a very satisfying episode. There we go again. So here we are with Philip. I'm Michael Troy, and here we are with Philip J. Urso. Once again to give our full on spoilers and our opinions, our reactions to the season finale of the amazing X97. We've been doing every episode, and it's been a roller coaster ride for sure. And this finale did not disappoint. So, Philip, without further ado, please tell me what you thought of this episode.
Well, it didn't disappoint. It was definitely, I like that it was a little longer. I noticed it was like 42 minutes. I mean, of course, the ending credits run for like 5 or 6, but it was about 5 minutes longer than your standard episode, at least. Um, I will say, even though I was happy and I'm not like, oh my God, no. I mean, oh my God, no, it's over, but it wasn't like a cliffhanger that left me so unresolved that I'm going to be pulling my hair out for the next year. I do think that this episode of the 3-part finale, this was the least intense. And not that it wasn't intense, I just felt like parts 1 and 2 were so like, oh my God, what the flying. But this one had some good moments, but I wasn't on the edge of my seat as much as I was episodes parts 1 and 2 of this 3-part finale. What do you think?
I agree 100%. Like I said, it did not disappoint, but it didn't have that level of extreme adrenaline that the last two episodes had. I feel like it had a sense of sort of like, in a way, tidying things up, but also, putting forth in motion, like definitely planting seeds of what will happen next season 100%. There was kind of a lot of that in a way, don't you think? So, I mean, did it spread the episode a little thin and take away from some of the impact of the finale? Perhaps. Didn't I say like I wanted something extreme and major to happen? I mean, you could argue that it did in the way they led it up, but let's face it, like what they are setting up with this, everyone's across everywhere, missing across the time stream, blah blah blah, whatever.
Kind of
That's
like New Special Edition when they were in Asgard, where Ileana accidentally scattered them all throughout time in Asgard.
right. Is there any doubt in your mind that it'll all be resolved? I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I mean they are leading the way to Apocalypse again, which is kind of interesting because they supposedly got rid of past Apocalypse by destroying his Lazarus chamber in season 4. But he went into the astral plane. He took over Fabian Cortez's body in season 5. I'm no spoilers alert galore for you, but you'll forget this by the time you get to your rewatch, which
Right,
we're gonna
right,
have to
right.
before the end of this conference. But it's just like I don't. I would like to see how they're going to tie all the apocalypse stuff together because of how they kind of dealt with his past self versus his future past self. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't super excited to see them go back to Egypt and do this apocalypse story. I wasn't crazy about it when it happened in the comic book. Although I have to say, he looks really cool. Like they
yeah,
captured his look
the
very
anime
well.
top. I was like, he looks really like crisp and
Yeah. So
clean.
maybe need to keep an open mind because it could be interesting where what they decide to do with them. And did it not strike you? I guess it probably struck you a long time ago and it's more obvious, but I feel like Bishop looks so hot and he looks very much like Beau DeMayo. Do you think that's intentional? And
Absolutely.
Or did we even maybe talk about this before? I don't know, but
No,
I
I
just
said
maybe
I
I'm
sent
just
a
like in
picture
lust
from
with.
a concept art from his Instagram page. I'm like, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, that's true. And there are a lot of fans doing like Bo DeMeo as Bishop, sort of fan art. So maybe I need to get on that wagon train. Why not? I don't
It's
know.
it's a nice looking train.
Right? I'll say. So, oh, and I'd like to point out, obviously, you pointed out a long time ago the possibility, probability, way to bring Gambit back would be by making him one of the four horsemen. And obviously we saw Apocalypse picking up his card, so that's gonna happen 100%, don't you think?
Yep, and we don't know where Storm, Wolverine, and Morph are.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna save it, but that leads me to, I'm sure, what has to have been your favorite part of the entire episode, and why Morph is my new favorite character. That was so hilarious when Wolfie's like fighting for his life, and Morph turns into Jean Grey and says, "She can't say it, but I can. I love you, Wolverine. You have to
Well,
pull through."
but it's more like he transferred into Madeline because he didn't have the ponytail; he has the flowing hair.
Okay, well, leave it to you to nitpick that little detail. But either way, I was living for the entire scene. I don't know if I laughed out loud, but I think I did. It was so good.
Well, when he did Old Man Sinister, that was hilarious.
Oh my God, I wanted to lose my mind. I could not believe he trolled him like that. And like immediately after too. Like it
Well,
was so
Sinister
good.
asked, said, "Show me what I look like." So he got what he asked. He asked for. He had it coming, literally.
And
Um,
since we're on the subject of Morph, I feel like this was kind of a perfect example of how some of his transformations can be a little distracting because idiot that I am, once again, I'm like, what is Mr. Fantastic doing here? And clearly it was Morph, you know what I mean? But,
Sauron. If he's going to turn into somebody who can fly, why Sauron? I mean,
Well, I mean, it is definitely Easter eggs and
oh, it's totally. I mean, we
fan
had
service.
all those what do you call it? Those cameos. We had Cap again, but he actually spoke. We had Daredevil again, I think. Has Daredevil appeared before? We had
Love
Cloak.
seeing Daredevil. Love
We
seeing
had Cloak and
Daredevil. I
Dagger,
don't.
Silver Samurai again, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Black Panther's dad, King T'Chaka. We had either War Machine or Crimson Dynamo in the Soviet Union with Dark
Oh, I
Star.
feel like I said Dark Star. We saw Alpha Flight,
Yeah, we
which I
saw Omega
died.
Red.
What?
we saw
Omega
we
Red.
saw Omega
I
Dread.
know. And well, at least Dark Star was with him. It was nice to
Yeah,
see.
we saw Psylocke. Um,
Oh yeah, it was. Oh, and Ascani. I'm like, this is not
oh
how I
my God,
wanted to.
yeah, that I was gonna save that for later, but yes, oh my God, Rachel, Rachel, Rachel,
Here she is in all her wrinkled glory.
and that's gonna be, I guess, hopefully they will reveal that she is their actual future child together, since Cable is Madeline's, because they're totally going adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix here.
Well, is that like why? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, which I,
Did
I
you
don't know.
read that?
I didn't really actually. It's funny because I found like I think it was one of those series that I got like the first issue and I was like not on board with it because I found it in my collection and I actually have reviewed it elsewhere on my channel, but I don't remember what I thought. I really liked the art by Gene Ha. I thought it was pretty good, but I don't know. It was just bizarre to me. So that's basically Gene and Scott going into the future to save. Is it to spare baby Cable from the time?
To basically raise Cable from baby to preteen, to help save the future of to prevent the rise of Apocalypse, which of course never happens. You can't stop Apocalypse from happening, but
I think I
it
like
was.
to hear that though, because that's always my problem with the whole Cable situation is that they sent him away when he was a baby and God knows who raised him. And then he comes back this, old man with problems. And, you know,
I think it was a way of when they did that, because they tied up a lot of loose ends, because at that time Rachel disappeared in Excalibur into the time stream because she saved Captain Britain, who was lost in the time stream when they returned from the days of future past.
Yeah.
And so she's happy and content because she just saw Scott and Jean get married. She sacrifices herself in the time stream to bring Brian Braddock back to this time. And then you find out right away that she's Mother Ascani, aged God knows how many years. And she summoned Cyclops and Jean psychically because she exchanged their minds. She took their minds from the present and brought them into future into cloned bodies that were as close to their original bodies as possible. And they raised Cable for, I mean, they're there for about 12 years, I think. It was what do you call it? Marketed as the world's longest honeymoon because they spent 12 years in the future raising Cable, and then they were instantly transported back to the exact place and time, maybe a few hours later in their young bodies. So they didn't age here, but they had 12 years of life lived. And Rachel asked Jean before her body physically dies, because she's got to be over like 100 in the future, and said
She looked pretty long in the tooth as
she was very long in the tooth. She asked if Jean would take on the name Phoenix in her honor, and that's when Jean thankfully stopped being Jean Grey and took on the code name of Phoenix again, because nobody can find a better code name for Jean Grey, because Marvel Girl is just played to death, and she's a woman, she's not a girl. And what else can you call her? You know, it's just Phoenix is her best code name.
100%. And I loved seeing her tap into the Phoenix power in this finale and a glimpse of it. On one hand, I was like, oh, here we go again. But on the other hand, I was like, she needs to be Phoenix. You know, like, that is her. Why can't it be her? Like, you know, I feel like as horrible as it is, the blue and orange costume that Jim Lake came up with, is that trying to be a Phoenix costume in a way, or
that was probably his least interesting costume design during the Mutant Genesis, in my opinion.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Like,
his Cyclops was really cool. I thought that was a great redesign.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously his Psylocke is killer. I mean,
people love his Rogue. I preferred Silvestri's Rogue in the black and green bodysuit.
I feel like his Rogue, his green and yellow Rogue is super interesting. Obviously, it's very iconic. I do like it for the cartoon. Like, I really enjoyed seeing it in the beginning of the series. The green outfit, I feel like we could do, like, I would like to see, like, maybe some of her other outfits visited, as horrible as they potentially could be. Because, like, I mean, her current return to this green outfit isn't as flattering as she looks in the green and yellow one, you have to admit.
Correct. I mean, she does have, I think in Extreme X-Men, when that first came out, it was her first outfit, I think, ever, that she wore for more than like a one-off, where she was in, I think it was red and blue. And so for once she wasn't in green and or yellow, you know, and that was just, you know, that was a change for her. So it was kind of cool. But where the back to Phoenix, just to let you know, in the context of the comics, or not the comics, of the series, Jean is not Phoenix. She was possessed. So the Phoenix is a separate entity, guardian of creation, and the Phoenix jumped into her body. It did not clone her, take over as her. So Jean was being inhabited. It was like an invasion of the body snatchers, or no, well, you know.
Well, I mean, okay. Do you feel like before they brought her back for X Factor, was that was she was possessed by the Phoenix Force base, essentially, right?
Well, that's how a lot of people interpret it, but it was more like a Jekyll Hyde thing. Phoenix represented her full potential as a psychic or telepath. Because, you know, when she became Phoenix, you know, a lot of us read it as, because when you go back and read it, it's actually different than what we remember as kids, because our attention span back then was probably not as, you know, of course, as we get older, as it is good. I always interpreted her transformation into Phoenix to be akin to the Fantastic Four being bathed in cosmic rays, and that caused her to, you know, to get this power upgrade. But originally, as written by Claremont, it was like a mother lifting a car off her child. She was using as much of her powers, in a near death experience to save the people she loved. And that caused her to tap into her ultimate potential. And that gave her a quantum upgrade of abilities. Like, so it wasn't a cosmic thing. It wasn't this. And then with Dark Phoenix, that's when she was exhibiting, due to, the seduction of power and this and that. She was getting that Jekyll Hyde persona. But then they talked about the Phoenix Force here and there, how it's, it was a psychic thing linked to alt, people with mental powers, and maybe that's, but technically she was just overcome by power absolute, or power incarnate, or what is it? Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
I'm
That's
kind
how
I like the way you described it initially, like how Claremont's version.
the what I thought, or how he wrote it. The
What
mother
you
lifting
said,
the car off a child thing.
yeah, how it
That's
that sort of like ignited her
that's what, yeah.
next level.
And
Yeah,
then,
like that's like a cool evolution right
yeah,
there, right? And unique.
and that caused her psychosis later on because she couldn't
Yeah,
handle it.
yeah. So
But
interesting.
I thought that, in the context of the TV show, it's like, because the Phoenix left her body at the end of the Dark Phoenix saga. It finally realized, it was, because Jean was killed by Lilandra, technically. Instead of Jean setting off the disintegrator, Lilandra pushed the button and used the Shi'ar weapon to destroy Phoenix. And at that time, Jean's mortal body died, and the Phoenix was released and became good again. Said, I lost my way. I got seduced by what humans call emotion. I lost my way. Now I am guardian of creation. And the X-Men gave a portion of their life essences that they gave to the Phoenix to resurrect Jean Grey, because she could not, her soul basically was gone, as the way they imply it. So the X-Men all gave a portion of themselves so she could be resurrected. She was, and the Phoenix left and said, I must depart. So Phoenix left. But in this, it implies that while Jean is at the bottom of not Jamaica Bay, of whatever that little pond was, that the Phoenix just took a side trip saying, okay, Jean needs me. Let me just take up residence again real quick, save Cable and her, and okay, now I'm bye.
Yeah.
Like a Phoenix timeshare now, it looks like. And to me, that was, while it was fun to see her go that way, it just seemed a little indulgent and a quick way to wrap that up.
Yeah, it seemed like a little unnecessary. I don't know, and a little convenient. Yeah, I wasn't so crazy about it, but yeah, because it kind of didn't feel natural and it felt kind of out of nowhere.
But, Bastion pretty much implied something. He said to Cable, Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor, never Phoenix, just dead. So he was like saying, your mom's dead, but she was never Phoenix. That's what I got from that portion of the conversation. So, and also, if Madeline was Phoenix, I don't think Phoenix would be looking over the real Jean Grey like the Phoenix Force was.
mm-hmm.
If Phoenix was Madeline. I mean, we know Phoenix had to be Jean because the fans would not accept it any other way. Now, Storm had a great line in this episode when Bastion was saying, I didn't choose to be born. And this is a quote. No one chooses to be born. None choose to be born, Bastion. Thus why we must never begrudge them being. That struck me to the core. I thought that was a beautiful line.
Yeah, that's a very classic sort of X-Men sentiment right there.
Well,
And
because there's
Storm,
always this debate of people, Magneto was right, is just a cool catchphrase. But when you think about what people are supporting when they say that, like, okay, so Armageddon's okay. Because he wasn't, if he had
I
not,
mean,
if the power was
he
not
may be right in philosophy, but he's not
his feeling
right.
justified, but he tends to take things too far.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, when people are like, you don't get X-Men if you think Magneto's wrong. I'm like, how about you don't get X-Men if you're not on the X-Men side? Because they are fighting him for a reason.
Yeah.
To preserve all life on Earth.
I thought the animation was amazing, of course. The action sequences were next level. It was so
Awesome.
good.
Nightcrawler had some good, bam, 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 bam punch moments again.
I love seeing them all fight together. What else? Oh, I loved like the interaction with Xavier and Magneto in the beginning. That was pretty powerful. I
I
thought it
I ship Charlie Toe or Mag Xavier. I always have. Their love is so pure. That's why
it,
Magneto accused him of jumping away with the Bird Queen. I think Magneto was jealous.
I have to say that like I kind of thought of you when, like they kept showing the Avengers just sitting there watching everything unfold. Like, are you not going to become involved here?
Yeah, Iron Man, you're not going to like try to help blast out Asteroid M as it plummets to Earth.
Like what? They're like just there with popcorn. I was like, what the hell?
And when Charles made Magneto turn everything back on, it would have been nice to see like Trish Tilby wake up.
Yeah, that would have been nice. And it would have
And
been nice
about
for
Bastion's crazy mother. Where was she?
I feel like she'll be back. I'm just
Oh
kidding.
yeah, everyone will be back, but
I know, and
and
he's like,
that was resolved very quickly. Like they got that out of the way in the first 5 minutes or so. So I was like, because I believe you are correct. They were kind of setting up next season little by little throughout this episode.
yeah, I felt like huge. Like, yeah, because like I said, essentially it's sort of just, yeah, it was a lot of setup in a way. Yeah.
I
Um,
really thought Jubilee had a nice moment in this episode, and we're not even huge fans of Jubilee.
I thought
I
Jubilee was
more than you.
awesome in this episode, honestly, and I love when she put on her glasses and it had the huge, like, they were broken. Like, that was just like so, I don't know, iconic to me. So,
Because when he just said, "What are you going to do? Attack me with the Fourth of July?" and she's like, "Yeah, never heard that before." And then she called him a sleazoid. I'm like, "Oh my god, Easter egg!" Because that's what they used to call the brood,
yeah,
sleazoids.
uh-huh. I know. Yeah, I thought that she really shined in that. And I loved seeing Roberto refer to himself as Sunspot or be called Sunspot. So that was
I'd like
good.
to use his super strength because remember that was his first power before he became like a solar, distributor.
Yeah, yeah, that really was just like basically the crux of his power. Like, yeah, he didn't really do anything with, yeah, it didn't, wasn't that like sort of seeing that was like the fun of the New Mutants, like seeing them develop their powers. I think that another testament, of course, to Chris Claremont, if you're gonna have a book based on these students just getting their powers. I'm glad they weren't like all experts or fully developed like straight out the gate. You know what I mean?
Well, you know
Because
what was interesting about him, and I don't love him particularly in the comics usually. He was the only New Mutant of Professor X's class to not be affected by the Beyonder killing them and bringing them back to life. Remember at Secret Wars 2 when the Beyonder killed 8 New Mutants? Sunspot was on his way to Brazil to meet his mom, so he
oh
was
yeah,
he was spared that. So when the other 8 were brought back to life, with the exception of Warlock, because he just got better because he's mechanical, the
uh,
other the other 7, their abilities had all regressed because of their experience with the Beyonder, and it was kind of an excuse to say now they have to start their training all over again under Magneto. So everything they all the mastery they had done with Xavier was gone. But Sunspot he was the only one who should have been more advanced than the others because he did not get killed by the Beyonder.
and that's that stunning Art Adams cover with them like in the graves. I think, yeah,
Yes.
so good. I know. I just, in addition, because we had discussed that this show has really made me want a New Mutants cartoon spin-off. I also, since you had talked about it earlier too, would love to see Excalibur have its own cartoon. Like, if there is ever more a comic book deserving of its own cartoon, I feel like it's Excalibur, especially on Disney Plus. Like, you know what I mean? It has that really super fun edge. And gosh, they were so very much like all over the time stream. And I feel like Alan Davis like loved those kind of storylines because he did them over and over again. And that was like a huge part of Excalibur. I'm okay with them every once in a while, but sometimes I think that they just detract from like the flow of, the soap opera in a way.
Well, I personally thought the cross time caper went on way too long. It lasted like a year,
That's
and
what I'm saying.
it just, to me, it just seemed like an excuse to do this multiverse hopping thing. So you could run into the X-Men, but they're not really the X-Men. You could see someone get killed, but it's not really them because it's not the 616 universe. Blah 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 blah. So, and it just went on and on. And at that time, um, the X-Men, I think, were that was when you had the X-Men scattered to the four corners because it was post Inferno. There wasn't a real team. You had the Muir Island X-Men, you had Storm, you had Lil Ro, um, you had you had Psylocke and her assassin thing going on. You had the X-Men were scattered everywhere. X Factor was off for like 9 or 10 issues doing that Judgment War. The New Mutants were off in Asgard the second time, and that was like a 10 issue storyline. So it's like it was 87 or 88 was like, let's just create year-long storylines for every single X book.
I know. That's wow. I that was crazy. I feel like I need a cigarette after that.
Marlboro Light. And I took notes sporadically, of course, but that Forge's call sheet on his wall. So top row was Cyclops, Jean, Storm, Beast, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Jubilee, and Sunspot. And everybody but Jubilee and Sunspot in that row was marked missing, presumed dead. Jubilee and Sunspot are AWOL. Middle row was Charles, Scarlet Witch, Colossus, Morph, Rogue, Dust, Archangel, and Magic. Magic apparently exists in her teenage form, so
And Shadowcat.
she was on the bottom row. So Charles was missing, presumed dead. Scarlet Witch is off world. Colossus is active. Morph is missing, presumed dead. Rogue, same. Dust is active. Archangel is missing, presumed dead, which I'm like, but he wasn't, unless he's presumed dead on another mission, he wasn't present for this. And Morph didn't turn into him. And then Magic is active. And the bottom row was Wolverine, Iceman, Havoc, Cable, Exodus, Quicksilver, Shadowcat, and Emma. And Wolverine missing, Iceman and Havoc active, Cable AWOL, Exodus active, Quicksilver off world with Wanda, of course, and Shadowcat and Emma are active.
So how are we getting Shadowcat when we've never had Kitty Pryde?
I don't know. I'm hoping they just say she's like an established college student or something who, has already come into her abilities. I don't know. I want her to be older than Jubilee. It will bother me if they make her younger than Jubilee.
Well, it's like that says to me that she probably is. You know what I mean? Just like if they were going to make her introduce her as new and younger, they would have her be Kitty Pryde or Sprite for sure,
Yeah,
don't you?
absolutely. And Jubilee now is 18 and a half because 6 months has gone by.
Oh, I know. Like that was so crazy how they're like 6 months later. That was a little like I don't know Dallas or Melrose Place in a way, but
Because she's aging pretty darn quickly. I mean,
right. Well, they're gonna, she's gonna be gambling before you know it. Do you have to be
right?
20?
Where the new Titans were, uh, Nightwing, Donna Troy, Cyborg, Kid Flash. They were 19 for like 10 years.
And as they should be. Like I don't want, I don't want my. It's so weird. Case in point, Savage Dragon is aging in like real time, and I like had not read it in years, and I just randomly picked it up and started reading it again because he moved his family to San Francisco, and I thought it'd be a fun jumping back on point because I do like Eric Larson's art. We won't get into that, but um, but I couldn't handle it. Like if I picked up the X-Men and Storm was like 60 years old and like whatever, like no, I can't. Like they can't age in real time for me. I don't want that.
And if it is older Storm, it needs to be Limbo Storm. The
Once
one
again,
who was,
that is
the one
like
who was the
not only is that acceptable, that is what we want to see.
yes. So we can have a magic explanation because if Ileana is present and a teenager, which also begs us to think, because when you rewatch the first series, she appears in season 2 of the X-Men as a 6 or 7 year old. So if those are not just Easter eggs they're throwing at us, she has clearly gone into limbo since we've seen her behind the scenes. They're gonna have to like do a backstory on her for sure, and morph transformed into her.
He did, bless him. Just another reason for me to um love him. He's quickly becoming my favorite character. And I
He's a
felt
lot of
like I didn't have much love for him when he was actually in the comic book, though, wasn't he?
fun.
Or
Well,
not
actually,
really.
in the show, he's a they. So,
In the show,
so
he's a what?
he's a they.
Oh,
He's
well, yeah,
non-binary. He's
he's not
non-binary.
binary. I apologize for
Yes.
misgendering Mr. Oh, them.
It gets confusing because in '97 that wasn't really a thing, and the term I think back then was genderqueer.
Yeah, but he wasn't like that in the. Was he part of the original show?
He was because his death, their death, in the first episode was what kind of like set off motions, things in motion for the series. About how mutants were being targeted and that the Sentinels killed him, and then you find out in season 2 that Sinister like kind of brought him back to life, a la Jekyll and Hyde style,
Yeah,
Frankenstein style. And then he goes through some trauma. He has some good development. They have some good development. Sorry.
I
Um,
know it's hard to get used to, but I have to say, like, and I think that you've said it, like the term they and them did not exist for like a non-binary person back in 97. However, I think that if there was an argument for a character sort of just naturally following that sort of
being gender fluid.
being gender fluid, it would be him 100%.
And
Them, it
Mystique
would be
and
them.
or Mystique.
Yes, right.
Especially now that Mystique is Nightcrawler's dad.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's like that is like the literal definition of gender fluid.
It would be very interesting to see um, that story unfold in a future season of X-Men because
I
they
would
they
love to see that.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's like super unique to the world of the X-Men. Yet I can see people sort of getting up in arms about it and saying like, "Oh, it's woke" or whatever. But I disagree 100%. I think it makes perfect sense within the realm of the X-Men. It's what Claremont wanted to set up years
Originally wanted
ago.
to do.
So, which is kind of years ahead of its time, and like really part of such a beautiful love story, and shows a way in which like why wouldn't they have a child together if they could do it that way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's very revolutionary considering when he conceived this concept. It
Mhm.
was what, the '80s, and he's in his late '70s, early '80s himself. So for somebody, who's mature and worldly, well versed in so many things, and some could say, oh well, he's very traditional. Like, no, I mean, he's just you know not stuck to any sort of age guideline, in my opinion. He just has such, like I said, he's revolutionary, and he just he's timeless.
Yeah. um it's interesting because I remember reading this interview with Claremont. One of the storylines that he did not do, he wanted to have, I feel like it might have been rejected at the time because it was a little too controversial or something, but he wanted to do a storyline where a young mutant comes to Xavier for help because she's pregnant with like a powerful mutant, and he's sort of like, I don't know, trying to like monitor the baby through, in utero or whatever. I don't know. I forgot how the storyline was supposed to carry out, but like it was eventually, nixed. But it just goes to show how, I don't know, out of the box, and just how what a great writer Claremont was, in my opinion.
I mean, there was the hints about Storm and Yukio that he said he wanted to make that a romance. Um,
It's very interesting because Storm and Yuki for like I I they definitely had like this great romance in a way, you know what I mean? Like but it's more of a like a sisterly bond in an
That's what I
Amazonian
saw.
kind of way. Do
I
you know what I
thought it,
mean?
Yukio was just such an inspiration to her. And to make it romantic, in my opinion, just would have taken away the inspiration that Aurora wanted to be more like her. Um, I wouldn't be against Aurora being bi or whatever. I just thought the story played out so well. It was a mentor, you know, I'm repressed. I need to be more like this woman and embrace who I am because that's when she lost connection with her abilities. People thought originally it was because they were in outer space for so long. It was disharmony with herself that was causing her power
And
to just flare all over the place.
Yukio for Storm to me is exactly what you're saying. She's that person that you meet that makes you excited about yourself again.
Yeah. And yeah, could that transfer into romance? Of course it could, but I just like the way it originally played
No,
out.
yeah, I think it's more an inspirational. I like the hero worship kind of aspect about it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't need everyone to have a freaking romance, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
it's very empowering to me to make it more inspirational. That's just how I see it.
Right,
And
because there's so many different types of relationships, and that's just one of them. You know what I mean? It's such a great example of a powerful one too.
I mean, heck, I want Wolverine and Morph to, take that next step.
Gosh, that would be so interesting in a way. I don't know.
You can tell Morph is crushing on him big time. It's so cute.
It is, but it'll be interesting to see how Wolverine reacts to it.
Yeah, well, depending on where he is and how if he's healed from his experience.
Right.
They kind of sidelined him for most of this episode, which I was kind of shocked about because, he just had that huge event.
Now, when when Morph was like, "I love you," they should have done a close up of his claws and had the bone retract.
uh we all think we could write this stuff, right? Maybe we could, but I'm
Oh
just
no,
I'm
thank
just glad
God.
Bo has season two mapped out. Thank the goddess.
We all think we could. Listen, I'm not going to pretend I can write any of this better than any of them. And thank God, no, I would not want it to play out the way I'm writing it. But I don't know. I feel like, season 2 and 3 are in the works, and I can see that they're going to be fully loaded if they're anything like this season. And with all the setup, like that little roster, Forge's hit list or whatever, that's got to be the characters that we're going to be seeing next season. So I mean, we full well expect to see Emma. There's no way. Why would they just reveal her secondary mutation in Genosha and not use her further? That would be stupid. Um, so what? I guess they're gonna. Well, I don't know. Like now that they're dispersed all over the place, I guess the plan to go to Muir Island and play house, X house is
Well,
sort
yeah,
of.
Muriel is just pretty much unoccupied right now because Moira and Banshee were killed in Genosha. I think
I know.
they were on the kill list.
I was just laughing again, thinking about Mr. Sinister being reduced to like such a
Old man Essex.
to Gollum, basically.
That's well, Apocalypse is on the scene. Maybe Apocalypse will restore his youth since Apocalypse was his mentor or creator or whatever. He was a disciple of Apocalypse after they retconned his origin. Um, so I always liked
So
that he was a badass biatch. He was like one of
yeah,
the toughest Men foes ever with his Colossus Dracula looking self.
Maybe they could have some new apocalypse horsemen. Wasn't Trish Chelby one of the apocalypse's horsemen at one point?
God, there's been so many. I I know, Wolverine and Gambit definitely are on that list, and that's going to be a way of getting Wolverine adamantiumed up again and bring Gambit back. I kind
Ooh.
of thought lost over Sunspot and Rogue, on opposing side, and all of a sudden now, okay, everybody, we're all one big happy family again.
Now, how did Wolverine get his adamantium back in the comic book? I feel like I read
It
it
was
and like
Apocalypse. I think it was Apocalypse.
it was Apocalypse. So that's kind of sinister.
It is. And I have to Wikipedia this, but Daniel Forge, I'm like, oh my God, he has a first name.
It's funny because that was my first thought, and I was like, that was such news to me. Like I had never ever heard him referred to as Daniel before. And is that canon? Is that
I have to look that up because it must have happened, after I stopped reading for a while.
I
Uh,
guess I'm kind of cool. See, like I don't need any of these answers. Like I was just always fine with Forge. He could just be Forge to me.
and apparently, at some point in the future, Bishop said his name was Genesis.
Forge's name is Genesis.
His code name was Genesis in the future, apparently, at some point
Oh,
in time.
that sort of sounds familiar in a way. So I seem to recall that at some point.
It was when Bishop first came back, and it was in, because he was in Uncanny, but then like he makes an appearance in Jim Lee's X-Men when he says that Gambit is the traitor in the future. And but when he's introduced in the beginning and they say, he's like, hi, I'm Bishop, went Genesis. He's like, close, it's Forge. He's like, for the moment. It was just it was cute dialogue, even though Claremont didn't write it. And it was a few months before the mass exodus of 93, 92, 93.
The mass exodus.
But I don't want to ruin anybody's image.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure that people can put two and two together and figure out what you're talking about. Um, I know, like the beginning and the end, right?
And it's interesting though. Marvel went bankrupt in the 90s. The rights were scattered across the four corners, across time. Yet they still make more profitable movies than Warner Brothers.
I know, it's crazy. Marvel just has the edge on DC when it comes to movies for some reason.
They do, unless it's a Batman movie, apparently.
How do you feel about the new Superman image that has been teased from James Gunn? I mean, I'm okay with it, but I'm not excited about it. Like, I feel like we've been here too many times before for like I'm reserving judgment.
And if you were going to go with somebody who looked like a slightly younger version of Henry Cavill, why couldn't we have just kept Henry Cavill?
Right. And like, I don't know, the the costume looked
Dirty?
dirty, loose. It looked a little bit like pajamas in a way.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it looked kind of like in Superman 3, where he's exposed to the bad kryptonite that has tar in it, and he becomes bad Superman who gets drunk. How a Kryptonian can get drunk is beyond me. And then he's just like all nasty and has sex with that bimbo, and then Clark comes out of his body, and you have good Clark versus evil Superman, and in the dirty suit. Anyway, yeah, that dirty suit is what it reminded me of. Dark Superman from Superman 3.
now that you mention it, that's thanks. I can't like unsee that. But yeah,
You're
I knew I didn't like it for some reason, and that's probably it. But and give me an S. Like I'm sick of this weird S. Like I feel like that Alex Ross did not reinvent the wheel by changing that, like doing that Kingdom Come kind S, and any effort to sort of like copy it. I know it's like trying to look more Kryptonian than, Earth, but it just says dystopian to me in a way. I don't know. I don't like.
Well, that's what I loved about the original Wonder Twins outfits. They took their symbols based off of Superman's, and they were just bright and vibrant and easy to read.
Um, Okay, so here's off topic, just because this is it's a conversation I had with our mutual friend Sam J. Royale recently. Um, do you remember? I don't know if you ever read Wizard magazine at all.
I did.
Okay, so do you
When it
remember when
like X-Men and or something else, yeah.
they did the most amazing thing ever, but it was the dirtiest trick ever because I wanted to cry when I found out it wasn't real. They did this April Fool's gag where they had Alex Ross do two paintings of the Wonder Twins for a fake book that was going to come out. It was going to be a treasury-sized Wonder Twins book, like the Wonder Woman and Batman ones that he was doing at the time, called Form of Water, and it looked like, I'll have to send you the images of it. You're gonna die when you see it. It's the best image of the Wonder Twins you will ever see in your life. And I totally love the Wonder Twins. And when I realized it was just an April Fool's gag, like I was so sad. And my friend Sam did not know it was an April Fool's gag at the time too, and like was like really disappointed that it wasn't real too.
Oh, I think I know the image you're talking about. If it's Sam, if it's Alex Ross,
Yeah,
because
of course. Like, I
I
mean, obviously, there's
mul-
only so many images of Alex Ross painting the Wonder
yeah,
Twins,
I looked up multiple images of them when one of my friend Gina and I cosplayed them 2 years. We did a steampunk Wonder Twins.
and it was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's one of my actual cosplays. That's not just a couple of things out of the closet that I made male version or I had male versions of Wonder Woman attire put together. A jacket, a hat. That it was like that was a little bit. And then my only real full on cosplay I've done that's actually the character from Soup to Nuts was Non from the Kryptonian from the Phantom Zoners of Superman
And
2.
that is 100% like amazing. Like, it's such a great cosplay. Like, you nailed it. So, you have such great pictures of yourself from that. Are those your friends that you were with, or just other people who happen to be dressing like them?
My sister was Ursa, which kind of
Okay.
works. Last name is Urso.
I
Ursa.
love that. I know.
Our friend Gina, who made the costumes, was General Zod.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, I love it. That must have been so much fun. And didn't you get to meet the real people, or is one
Two
somebody
out of
else?
three. We got to meet Sarah Douglas, who was lovely, and Jack O'Halloran. He was very sweet too. We didn't get to talk to him as long, and you know, there were more. He looks like he was dealing with more physically demanding challenges because he had to he couldn't stand for long for the photo op. And one of them he had to be sitting down, but he was just delightful to talk to, and it was a fun time all around. And I just said, well, thank you for giving me my inspiration for my first full on cosplay. So it's not easy being you, but somebody when they saw our pictures of Sarah Douglas said we were tiny Kryptonians, and then somebody else said called us Lilliputians, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry to be offended, but me and my sister and Gina thought it was freaking hilarious. We're like Lilliputians. I said, then I just referred to us as Kryptonians.
Well, I mean, you could have been, let's see, I don't know, like there could be a work release program from the Phantom Zone to the city of Pandora.
There you go. Oh, that's good. Have to write that down later. Now I'm just
Got
like,
we.
what is?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go
let me
ahead.
see your shirt. Actually, is that the
Oh,
Jim
I
Lee?
brought back the Jim Lee X-Men one. I
Okay.
know. For next season, I'm gonna definitely have to amp up my wardrobe. So,
I
um,
had a really cool outfit I wanted to wear, but it didn't come in time. It's a tank top with a vest, and it's an X-Men '97 vest, front
uh-huh.
and back. Um, so I'll just wear that to a con because five of the voice actors will be at a local con at the end of the summer. So I can wear it then for some selfies or whatever. So that'll be nice. Uh, I hope some more of them show up, but my favorite's going to be there. Storm will be there, so I'm just happy because I've met her once, but I didn't get the chance to talk to her for a while because we did a group selfie. I got to talk to Rogue and the original Gambit, who now voices Cable. Those were the two actors, and they were delightful. But I would have liked to talk to Storm more because Storm is my favorite character of the X Men.
It would be great as if you could get her on video saying, "Do you know what happens to a toad when it gets struck by lightning?"
I would never ask her to say that. I would more like have one of her speeches from "I summon the full power of the soul."
I know. I would be her worst nightmare, like the stuff I would want to try to get her to say. But anyway,
So let's see predictions for next season. Like, where are Storm, Wolverine, and Morph? Or are they? I don't think they're with Jean and Scott because I think Jean and Scott have to have their separate little cable raising baby scenario in the future and have some Rachel time. Maybe they're in Egypt with the others and we just haven't seen them yet. Because Storm
well,
in Cairo.
hmm, I know, like, part of me wanted them to like wind up in Australia. I know
Ooh,
that's not
maybe,
gonna.
maybe they're in Australia fighting the Reavers.
I would love that. That would be amazing. Yeah, like I think we have to wrap up this episode and we can end that up with, but I think that um it's on one hand, I don't want to predict what's going to happen, but on the other hand, it's kind of easy to predict what's going to happen just because I feel like they've laid out so much of it. We're definitely going to get the but it's also kind of interesting too, is because if it plays out the way they've set it up, like we've got a lot of different storylines going on at the same time, you know. Um, so we're definitely gonna have the Jean and Cyclops thing where they're off in the future raising their son, which I like.
The clan
Uh,
of Scott.
I feel like we're gonna get, I guess, Kitty and Emma and Magic. I don't know. I'm
That would
here for it, whatever they bring us. Obviously, we're going to get to see this young apocalypse storyline play out. Um,
maybe Strife. He
e-
was a part
yeah,
of.
I mean, were we not going to get Onslaught? I guess not, right?
Well, because Xavier didn't mind White Magneto. You
Right.
know,
I know. I know.
Magneto kind of looked like they didn't have any traumatic experience as a result of you know but they've kind of glossed over certain. They don't have to do everything exactly like the comics, so otherwise why would we watch the show if everything's exactly like the comics?
I mean, I agree on one hand, but I do feel in a way it's a little bit of a missed opportunity, just because it was such a huge storyline. But I guess it's something that, they could revisit. And plus, I had predicted early on that we were gonna perhaps see like Cassandra Nova introduced by now, but we haven't seen that. So I think that honestly, this second season is shaping up to be very different from what I expected, but it looks like it's going to be chock full to the gills and super busy. So it looks like they have the work cut out for them.
And if the animation stays the same, we will be happy little campers because it's been
Yeah,
top.
and to your point, in a way, I think that's good. You know what I mean, and I think that speaks to the success of this first season, is that they're definitely visiting a lot of the storylines. They are giving us, they're not being shy about it, giving us like direct panels from the actual storylines from the comic books, but they are changing things. Like you said, they're shorthanding things. Like they definitely did life death differently than we saw in the comic book. And, they did the whole Inferno storyline. And so
15
quickly.
minutes. You know?
So, I feel like we're in good hands, and you know, we'll be here either way. Let's hope. Let's hope they don't have sophomore itis and like get in a slump or something like that. But if as long as they keep up with this great animation and realize the momentum that they have going, and just like I think they were set up good for season two for sure.
So before we wrap up, not to put you on the spot, but let's know our viewers, give our viewers at least an idea of when should we start our rewatch of the original series.
Well, why don't we uh let's see. How many episodes am I supposed to be watching for our recaps?
The first two seasons are 13 episodes each, but it's 20 minutes an episode.
Okay, so I'll watch the first season and then so maybe every 2 weeks.
Sure. Um, just let me if you tell me like 2 weeks from today you want to recap season one, I'll just make sure I watch it again myself so I have fresh critique.
And obviously, we can do it on a different day than this day if there's another day that works out better for you. So
We can do it on a weekend if you want, or do you prefer weeknights?
I usually prefer weeknights, yeah.
Okay, so let's just say tentatively 2 weeks from today, if not a day sooner or a day later, if you prefer doing it on a Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay, sounds good.
We can just text each other saying how far along are you in your rewatch
Yeah,
every 3.
yeah. So sad as we are to be at the end of the first season, fear not, viewers, we will be recapping the first series, season by season. I think we're gonna do season by season. How about that? So
Definitely the first
I
two.
have
They
my work cut
longer.
out. Yeah, I have my work cut out for me. So we will be back in 2 weeks with my I'm sure what is to be hilarious reaction to the first season of the original X-Men cartoon from 1997. So
1990.
that is how we are going to fill the void until we have the next season of X-97 coming up. And I am sad. I am very sad. I will miss it. But like I said, they gave us some good cliffhangers and we have something to look forward to. And I have my homework cut out for me. We're going to catch up and we're going to relive. And we invite you to join us for a recap of the series as it played out. You don't even have to watch along with us. We will watch it for you. And as usual, Philip is definitely the encyclopedic scribe that we need to help navigate the whole situation. So, all right,
Well,
parting
thank you
shot.
for making me part of this and originally inviting me to do this. It has been a blast.
It has been a total blast, and I look forward to recapping the original series with you, and even more forward to the return of a season two, which God only
Yeah.
knows when that'll be. But we will be here with bells on it for sure. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. It's been a total blast, like Philip said, and so much fun. I hope you've enjoyed our recap and reaction because, either way, it's fun to have somebody to talk about it with. Anyway, thanks, guys. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe so you can come back and be notified when we're recapping the next X-Men adventure. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit like, and we'll bring you more later. Bye, Philip.
Bye, Excelsior.
Yeah, maybe that'll catch on.
Yeah, if only
quit,
somebody had come up with that before.
quit trying to make Excelsior happen.
It's not